This was, let me just say it, the best industry analyst only event that I've been to this year. And it's kind of like the Academy Awards for the 12 people who still watch that, where they get the some of the best movies at the very end. And I mean, it's what makes a good industry analyst event. Well, it's one day. You get access to the most senior executives, including the CEO and the COO, and maybe they sit at your table at dinner. Incredible food. And it's not just about the CEO and the COO or the presidents, all the GMs show up. It's educational, summaries at the end that are consistent across all of the slides, getting customers up there that you can ask uncomfortable questions to if you want. So, first of all, hats off on a great event. This was not about news, right? This wasn't about the big news. And Dan, you and I follow the company so closely, we understand where they've come from. I think this was more getting all the analysts up to speed, but also putting out some, hey, here's kind of what we're looking at. So I see strength in the custom ASIC market in a lot of areas like smart NICs, cloud partnerships on AI accelerators. And they said it without saying. In fact, they put up some slides that clearly indicated they have design wins, but they also have designs in manufacturing. And that was a huge deal. We saw also, we had their CTO got up on stage and talked about the future of AI and high performance computing and the value add that Marvell technologies could bring to the table, particularly related to CXL and moving data across accelerators, but also the required memory footprint that it takes to pull off these applications in the most successful way possible. I was very impressed with the way that they showed just how far they are ahead in working with TSMC on 3 and 5 nanometer. They literally are the vehicle for big semis, and that's not including Apple or Qualcomm on this. And you know, what do you get when you're first to market with a new node? Well, you get typically lower cost per transistor, even though it does cost a boatload to get out there first. And also by having a smaller wafer, or a wafer you can pack, 30% more transistors in the same size, you get higher capability. So higher capability and lower cost and lower power are not bad things in semiconductors the last time that I checked.
Oh, no, they're not a bad thing at all. In fact, you called out a lot of things that I think are really great. Over the last year, we've both been on the record. We're not Marvell fanboys, but you can't argue with some of the data. First of all, I just want to give a shout. You kind of talked about the food, and I think it's worth pointing out, when you're going to lock us in a room for 12 hours and pound data across the screen, make it good. And I think Marvell did a really nice job of that. Quick action-packed sort of TED Talk style interactions with more than a dozen of their executive VPs and senior execs, and also customers, which I thought was great. We saw customers, we saw partners, which I always like to see, that it's not just about them tuning their own horn, but actually hearing customers like Nokia and others that showed up there and actually told stories about why they're partnering so closely with Marvell. The second thing, the dinner was great. I mean, the CEO, Matt Murphy, did come home from, being with Joe Biden earlier that morning to hang out with us. And so we really did appreciate that. And Matt's been really gracious, and he's always been gracious with his time. And, he's one of our keynotes here on the 6.5 Summit last year. Hopefully he'll be back next year. Chris Koopmans came on stage, and I just want to do a little macro dive real quickly. I've been thematically and almost obsessively talking publicly on the record and on TV about how important it is for companies to be at lower exposure to consumer if they want to be able to wade through this next couple of years of market volatility. Well, he came up with a slide that basically showed their 2017 versus their 2022 performance, and then how their revenue is transformed from what it was to what it is. In 17, Pat, 62% of Marvell's revenue was consumer. You remember what it is today?
Yeah, like 12.
God, you're good. It's actually 12%. This is why Pat's number one, everybody. Today, they're 88% infrastructure, 12% consumer. That move by Matt, Chris, and the team was, no bones about it, the most important move that was made that has made the company so successful over this last period of time. And while the stock has cut in half from where it was at its high, the company's actually doubled its revenue in just the past 2 years. It was $3 billion in revenue in FY21, and its annualized revenue for its fiscal year 2023, they expect $6 billion. I mean, so that's just a reflection on how crazy the market is. Double your revenue, make your company more resilient, and then get your stock price halved. So thanks, Jerome Powell, and terrible policy made by our Congress over the last few years. Joke, kind of. No, you have to interpret. You listen to my history. You'll see where I stand on all this stuff. And Pat, the other thing is just really strong performance across all the categories. The company is really categorized and been very transparent. I remember the first time I was reviewing its earnings, it kind of had like these two categories, and it was very kind of hard to read through. And now they've broken it into 4 very clear categories, and they're reporting the revenue on it, which I love that kind of transparency. Data center, carrier, automotive, enterprise networking. All of them, Pat, in 2 years period of time are close to or more than doubling. Data center up 2.4 times, automotive 2.9 times, enterprise networking 2.1. Carrier is the only one that hasn't doubled at 1.8. But performance across the portfolio, hard to be upset about that. There's a reason that Matt and Chris were smiling at dinner, and there was a reason we were smiling. They were smiling because of this. We were smiling because dinner was delicious. Good day at Marvell.